Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Margaret, and here I share real-life stories from my friends at the nursing home. The moment the cashier grabbed my wrist, I knew something was wrong. Not the kind of wrong you can ignore. Not a gut feeling, not paranoia. It was something colder, sharper, like a window cracking quietly in winter. Barely audible, but final. Eric and I were on our way to his mother's birthday dinner. She was turning 70, and we were already late. I'd ordered a lemon chiffon cake from the little bakery near our house, one she loved, and asked him to stop there so I could pick it up. He grumbled, as usual. "You couldn't have gotten it earlier?" he muttered, pulling into a space too small for his SUV. "It would have melted," I said simply, already unbuckling. He stayed in the car. I noticed he didn't even glance up from his phone. The bakery was nearly empty. A young woman stood behind the counter, tying a pink ribbon onto a box when I walked in. Her apron had a faint dusting of powdered sugar, and her hair was in a loose bun. She looked up and blinked, as if recognizing me. "Hi," I said, smiling out of habit. "Claire Mitchell. Pick up for the lemon chiffon?" Her smile faltered. She hesitated a second too long. Then she carefully set the ribbon down and opened a cabinet. "Right. One moment." When she returned with the cake, she placed it on the counter and said, very softly, "You're Claire, right? Claire Mitchell?" I nodded, confused. "Yes." She looked out the window toward Eric's car, then back at me. "I probably shouldn't say this," she whispered. "But your husband was here last week, with someone else. A younger woman, brunette. They kissed, over by the drinks." My throat tightened. "What?" She released my wrist. "I thought you should know." The cake stayed on the counter. I didn't say another word. I walked out through the side entrance. The street outside was quiet, damp. My feet carried me 2 blocks without a plan. Then I turned and watched him through the windshield. He was grinning at his phone. Tap, tap. Laugh. Scroll. Not once did he glance toward the store. Not once did he check the time or seem remotely concerned. 15 minutes passed. I turned and walked home. Our house looked like every other home on the street. Beige siding, a 2-car garage, porch with matching rockers we never sat in. But inside, it was curated. Claire Mitchell approved, his friends used to say. Spotless kitchen, earth-tone living room, throw blankets perfectly folded. I spent years making it warm and welcoming. But that day, it felt like a stranger's house. The orchid I'd rescued from the clearance shelf at Home Depot was finally blooming in the window. One perfect white flower. Somehow that hurt more than anything. I sat on the couch, still in my coat. My hands were shaking. Not from rage, from clarity. Because suddenly it all made sense. The late-night meetings, the extra showers, the way he flinched when I touched his phone or laughed too hard at something on it. The new shirt I hadn't picked, the cologne that wasn't his usual, the credit card receipts I never quite understood. My phone buzzed. Eric. "Claire, seriously, where the hell are you?" Eric. "We're already late. It's your cake." I didn't answer. I just stared at the window, at the bloom. He came home an hour later, slammed the door, stomped into the kitchen, shoved the cake into the fridge without looking at me. "Thanks for making me look like an idiot," he muttered. "Mom asked where you were. I told her you got food poisoning." Still, I said nothing. I couldn't yet. My silence was all I had. That night, while he snored beside me, I picked up his phone. I knew the password. I'd always known it. His ego was predictable. The texts were under a contact named Mike-Work. But the messages, they weren't from Mike. Her, I miss you already. Just 3 more weeks. Eric, Cancun is calling, babe. I booked the room with the ocean view. Her, do you think she suspects anything? Eric, not a chance. Claire doesn't look up unless it's from a book. My vision tunneled. My thumb scrolled on autopilot. Photos. A shot of the hotel confirmation. A photo of her, dark hair, a red bikini, flashing the peace sign on his boat. She looked no older than 29. I read every message, every joke at my expense. Every time he dismissed me like background noise. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I took screenshots of everything, sent them to myself, then deleted the sent items, put the phone back exactly where it was, slipped out of bed, walked to the guest room, locked the door, and finally allowed myself one quiet sob, the kind that breaks nothing but changes everything. The next morning, I told him I had a stomach bug and wouldn't be going into work. He grunted and left without a kiss. By 9 a.m., I was in the office of Deborah Landry, an attorney recommended by my friend Jules. Deborah was in her 50s. Sharp eyes, low voice, no patience for theatrics. "How long have you known?" she asked, not unkindly. "Last night," I said. She looked surprised. "You move fast." I met her eyes. "He's planning to take her to Cancun. He's already gone." Deborah laid out the plan. I'd open a separate checking account, file for divorce discreetly, change passwords, lock down credit, remove my name from joint obligations where possible, and freeze joint lines where I couldn't. I gave her access to the evidence. She nodded approvingly. "You're calm," she said. "Not calm," I replied. "Just done." By Friday, I'd signed the initial filing. By Saturday, I had keys to a small apartment above the bookstore I worked in. My manager had pulled strings to rush the lease. By Sunday night, I had moved out half of my belongings while Eric was golfing. He didn't even notice the dining chairs were gone. When he finally found out, 3 weeks later, I was sitting across from him in divorce mediation. He looked like someone had punched him. "Claire," he said, eyes wild. "What the hell is this?" I slid the manila folder toward him. It was thick with paper. Bank statements, screenshots, credit history, flight reservations, her bikini photo. He blinked, opened it, read the first page, then closed it like it might explode. "You went through my phone?" he hissed. I smiled. The first real smile I'd had in months. "You kissed her by the juice fridge." The room was too quiet after I said it. He blinked, once, then again, like a man coming out of anesthesia. The lawyer on his side, some smug 20-something named Cameron with slicked back hair and fake empathy in his voice, cleared his throat. "Eric," he said cautiously, "let's stay focused." But Eric didn't look at him. He was staring at me, and not with the regret I once imagined he might feel. Number. He looked humiliated, off balance, cornered, like he'd seen the whole world realign itself while he was still adjusting his shirt collar. "You've been planning this," he said, his voice sharp. I folded my hands. "I planned nothing. You did." I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. The power, I realized, was in the stillness. He shuffled through the paperwork Deborah had prepared. It detailed every lie, every secret transfer, every text message. It showed the hotel bookings, the gifts he tried to hide on our joint account, even the fake work dinner receipts. I'd kept the receipts, every single one. "I thought we were fine," he mumbled. "We weren't," I said. You were just too busy being adored by someone younger to notice I'd gone quiet. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Deborah leaned in. We're offering a clean 50-50. Claire keeps the house, as she's already vacated, and she waives any spousal support. Eric's jaw clenched. She what? I don't want your money, I said. I want my time back. And since that's impossible, I'll take my dignity. It took months to finalize everything. Eric stalled, tried to guilt trip, called late at night, left voicemails like, Claire, let's just talk. You're blowing everything up over nothing. She doesn't mean anything. Not like you do. I never responded. Instead, I built a life. The apartment above the bookstore was small, but perfect. A studio with high ceilings, exposed brick, and light that spilled across the hardwood floor like honey. I bought myself a new teapot, a green one. Eric had hated green. Jules came over with a sleeping bag the first weekend. We sat on the floor drinking cheap wine and eating takeout from the Thai place next door. You're glowing, she said, poking my cheek. I'm exhausted, I replied. Yeah, but you're glowing. I laughed for the first time in weeks. There's something strange that happens when you leave a man who never imagined you'd go. People stare. Some pity you. Others look impressed. Like you grew a second head, and they're not sure whether to be scared or in awe. His mother, of course, called me. How could you embarrass him like that? She demanded. I didn't answer. Just let the silence hang long enough for her to feel the weight of it. Claire, she said more softly, you've always been such a reasonable woman. I hung up. That was the thing about being reasonable. People expected you to stay quiet while they erased you. Work became my sanctuary. The store manager, Brenda, gave me extra hours. I stayed late, reorganizing the local author section, talking to customers who wandered in with coffee and grief and questions about poetry. There was something about touching books again that made me feel whole, like I could still hold something true. And slowly, I started remembering myself, who I was before I became Mrs. Mitchell, before I became someone who timed dinner to his moods, someone who swallowed small insults like vitamins. I was the girl who once read Jane Eyre 3 times in one summer, the woman who once wanted to open her own reading cafe, the friend who used to write birthday cards in cursive on real paper. She wasn't gone, just quiet. Now she was waking up. One afternoon, a woman came into the store holding a familiar bag, white, ribboned, with the logo of the same bakery where the cashier had warned me. I paused. Lemon chiffon? I asked, smiling. She nodded, surprised. Yes, my husband's favorite. I took a chance. You didn't buy it last week, did you? No, why? I almost laughed. Just curious. That bakery changed my life. She tilted her head, intrigued. How so? I thought for a moment, then said, sometimes the truth shows up in flour and sugar, when you're finally ready to taste it. She blinked, smiled. That should be a book title. I handed her one. Maybe it already is. By April, the divorce was official. The judge barely glanced at us. Just a stamp, a signature, and 22 years were gone in 3 minutes. Eric looked hollow. He tried to meet my eye. I didn't let him. Outside the courthouse, I stood in the sun and exhaled like I hadn't in years. Deborah hugged me briefly, then left to catch another client. I didn't go anywhere right away. Just stood there, feeling my heartbeat in my palms. It wasn't sadness. It was space. And space was freedom. That night, I poured a glass of red wine and played Etta James on the tiny speaker I bought at a thrift store. I danced, alone, in my kitchen, wearing mismatched socks and a silk blouse. At some point, I started crying, not from pain, from relief, because I had survived him, because he hadn't broken me, because I remembered my own name again. A month after the divorce was finalized, I stopped wearing my wedding ring, not because I'd forgotten it was there, but because I had finally remembered it didn't mean what I thought it did. It hadn't been love for a long time. It had been expectation, image, control dressed up in courtesy. I dropped it in a small porcelain bowl on my dresser, next to a pair of earrings I hadn't worn in years and a dried flower from the last bouquet I'd bought myself. Yes, I had bought, because Eric never did. He hated flowers, said they were a waste of money, that they died too quickly. Looking back, I think he said that about more than just flowers. The store started hosting Saturday readings, mostly local authors, a few college poets. Brenda asked me to run them. She said I had the voice for it. And for the first time in ages, I didn't try to shrink from praise. The first event drew 12 people. I read an excerpt from a memoir called Field Notes on the Silence. After, a woman in the back approached me with watery eyes and said, "Your voice made me feel like I was safe." Thank you, safe. That word stuck with me, because for years I hadn't been, not really. I had been predictable, polite, but never safe, not even in my own kitchen. It was in that kitchen that something shifted one quiet evening. I was making soup. Nothing fancy, just lentils and carrots and garlic the way my mother used to, when I received a text from an unknown number. "You look good. Saw you at the courthouse. Wanted to say something? Didn't." I stared at it. No name. No punctuation, even. But I didn't need either. I knew it was Eric. He hadn't contacted me since the decree. I'd blocked him on everything, but apparently he'd found a way around. I waited. 10 seconds. Then deleted it. I didn't respond. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. When someone breaks your heart slowly, daily, you don't need to yell when it ends. You just need to stop opening the door. Jules convinced me to join a pottery class with her. I hadn't touched clay since high school. The first week, I made a lopsided bowl. The instructor called it whimsical. I called it haunted. But it felt good, messy, grounding, something to shape with my own hands, something imperfect that didn't apologize for being real. I started painting again, too. I found an old box of watercolors in a storage bin from our old house. The paper was warped, but the paints were still good. One Sunday morning, I sat by the window with a cup of chamomile tea and painted what I saw. Not the world outside, but what it felt like to be free. It looked like light, pale blue and yellow, with lines that didn't stay inside the borders, just like me. And yet, there were days I still woke up missing something. Not him, but the idea of being loved, of being chosen, of being someone's reason to turn off their phone and listen. And that scared me, that after everything, I could still ache for that kind of validation, that even after reclaiming my life, part of me still longed to be someone's favorite place to come home to. I told this to my therapist. Yes, I'd started therapy. Quietly. No fanfare. She nodded gently and said, "That ache doesn't make you weak, Claire. It makes you human. But wanting to be loved and settling for crumbs are not the same thing." And I knew she was right. A few weeks later, I saw them. Eric and her. It was at the grocery store. Of all places. They were in the wine aisle. She was laughing too loudly at something he said. He wore that smug, easy expression, the one he used to save for clients or cocktail parties. I didn't freeze. I didn't duck. I walked right past them and made sure he saw me. He did. He looked stunned. I wore lipstick that day. Soft berry. I hadn't worn lipstick in years. His eyes trailed after me. She didn't notice. I didn't look back. Later that night, there was a knock at the bookstore. I'd stayed late prepping for an event. Brenda had already gone. It was nearly 9 p.m. I opened the door, expecting the janitor or someone from the cafe next door. It was Eric. He looked tired. Not in the way a man looks after a long day, but in the way someone looks when the fantasy stops working. "I shouldn't be here," he said. "Then don't be," I answered, already closing the door. "Claire, wait, please." I didn't open it fully, just enough to look him in the eye. "She's not you," he said. "I thought I wanted new, but I just got lonely." I stared at him. It would have been so easy to cry, or scream, or ask why again, even though I already knew. But instead, I said something I never thought I would. "You don't lose a woman like me by accident. You lose her because you weren't man enough to keep her." Then I closed the door, and locked it, and walked away. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't feel powerful either. Not exactly. What I felt was real, like every part of me had finally caught up to itself. My mind, my body, my voice, no longer spread thin, trying to be someone else's anchor. I slept 8 hours straight. And in the morning, I signed up for a small business workshop Jules had told me about, because I had an idea, and it was finally time to say it out loud. I didn't start a cafe. That was the dream once, in my 30s, when Eric and I first bought the house and still pretended we were partners. A little place with shelves of used books, fresh scones, and music playing from a tinny speaker in the corner. I even drew sketches of it once. He called it cute, said it wasn't worth the risk. But risk is different when you're free. Instead, I started something smaller, slower, real, a weekly circle at the bookstore. It started with just 3 women: Jules, a retired high school teacher named Denise, and an anxious young mother named Lisa, who stumbled in one day looking for parenting books and stayed for the coffee. We called it Thursday Light, because it felt like that. Like something soft pushing back the dark. No agenda. Just a table, mismatched chairs, mugs of tea, and space to say what needed saying. Sometimes we read out loud. Sometimes we just cried. But always, we listened. One afternoon, Lisa brought her mother. I recognized her, the cashier, from the bakery. She recognized me too. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then softened. "I've always wondered how you were," she said. I smiled. "Better than I ever thought I'd be." She looked relieved. I was scared to say anything that day. I don't know what made me do it. I nodded slowly. Sometimes the right thing doesn't need courage, just timing. She joined the circle. The group grew. Word spread. A journalist from a local women's magazine came one Thursday, sat quietly in the corner, then asked if she could write about us. The piece was titled, "The Bookstore Upstairs, Where Broken Women Gather to Mend." I hated the word broken. I told her so. But it reached people. One morning, I came in early and found a note slipped under the door. "Thank you. I haven't spoken to anyone in weeks. I'm coming Thursday. Please don't make me talk yet. I just need to sit and breathe. S." I kept that note, taped it to the inside of my closet, next to the decree, next to a photo of me and Jules on the bookstore steps, holding mugs and laughing like teenagers. Eric tried again, twice, once by email, once through a mutual friend, who stopped by just to say hi, and then casually mentioned how miserable he seemed lately. I didn't answer either, not out of malice, but because I was finally full, and full people don't beg for crumbs. My apartment is still above the bookstore. I've added plants, real ones, the kind that demand care and patience. I water them every Saturday while Nina Simone plays softly in the background. My fridge is always a little too empty, and my laundry sometimes stays unfolded for days, but no one complains. No one rolls their eyes at me. I drink wine from mismatched glasses. I buy fresh flowers just because. I sing in the shower again. Not for anyone else. For me. Last Thursday, Lisa showed up late with a pink envelope in her hand. It was a wedding invitation. She met someone, a kind man, soft-spoken, kind to her son. She looked nervous handing it to me. I wouldn't be standing here if not for you. I smiled, but shook my head. You did that yourself. No, she said. I watched you do it first. That night, I stood in the middle of the room after everyone left. The chairs still circled, the lights dimmed. There was a stillness, not emptiness, but peace. I whispered, just to the air. You mattered, Claire. You made it. And for the first time in years, I believed myself. I don't know where Eric is now. I heard he sold the boat, that the brunette moved out, that he goes to the gym more now, trying to chase something. Let him run. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not waiting at the window or counting someone else's footsteps to feel wanted, because I am mine now, and I am enough. The day he bought her roses, I bought a lawyer. And I've never looked back.